board members. Apparently, we have a quorum. We're all here, and I'd like to ask Jacqueline Martin to take a picture for us. Thank you. Jacqueline is the correct pronunciation, though, right?
I don't think so.
Well, I guess I'm wearing
Look,
red.
pronounce people's names right. Pronounce people's names right.
I mean, I could just wear
don't
this,
stand next to Jennifer
but I
because
don't
it's
really
too.
want to do that.
Don't stand next to Jennifer or Steve
Who's
because
that?
it's black.
I have, what color do you have on, Liz? I'm supposed to be wearing blue and yellow. You have white.
You're not supposed to be.
You can wear whatever you want.
Front of the table.
Okay, let's go Tigers.
Front of the
Oh,
table.
my kids have red.
I'll just
I
wear
want this
red.
over here.
Whatever.
It's fine, you're good.
What's the appropriate gift for a bar?
So we don't have to try this.
It's okay. I'll just be wearing.
What is?
Cash.
Is it? I mean,
Thank you.
New hires. The protocol is when you approach the front, you must bow or curtsy. You don't believe me, do you? Okay.
Honestly.
Oh my God,
People
I
give,
noticed
people
that
give money, people
she
make
let you borrow her
donations. Yes, she did.
we're gonna do something like for
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
collection of things for SAS.
I don't even like. I mean,
We'll do
he's
that.
allowed. If he would be happy with like $25 to launch or something, you know.
Okay. What was launch?
That's like the trampoline thing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Something that Bryce
Test.
like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's fine.
I'm excited. I'm excited
We're
for Bryce
excited.
to experience that.
Yeah. I'll take lots of pictures. Bryce is at the
Do you have
table.
room at the place for? Because he wants to come to both parts.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, if I wanted to come with him, is there?
You can definitely come to the synagogue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's enough
absolutely.
room. I don't want to,
Oh yeah, no,
play
there's
from
plenty
a
of room.
family
Well,
member.
yeah, nope, plenty of room. And if you don't want to come, he can also watch it on Zoom.
No, he wants to be
Yeah,
there.
yeah. That'd be
And I
great.
kind of want to.
Yeah, and stay for lunch. We have a kiddish lunch after.
I really want him to like experience that's a different culture, different than he's ever.
He'll have a good
I really
time
want
too.
him to, so.
He'll have a good time at the party
Oh,
too.
good.
Actually, I'll tell you this.
For those of you in the audience, you would have noticed our glee at having a picture taken. That's because we finally got to check that box. It was difficult to get us all together, so thanks for your patience. Falls over the room.
It's 6:30. They know it's 6:30.
The meeting doesn't start till Ben says,
Computer's loading up, and then we can go.
we can go now?
Go ahead.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Saline Area Schools Board of Education meeting for September 10th. Throw that one out. 2024 at 6:30. Could you please, as you're able, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Tim Austin. Thank you very much. Dr. Lodge has a rather important duty to perform at this point, and he'll explain what it is.
Right. So, at our Board of Education meeting tonight, we're looking forward to welcoming the 66 outstanding educators to the Saline area schools. And of these 66 new hires, 27 are SEA, so that'd be the Saline Education Association. 33 are education support personnel. 1 is in SASA, the Saline Administrative Association. 2 are central office members, and 3 are unaffiliated. So many of the new hires are here today so that you can meet them in person. And we're going to ask for everybody to line up in just a minute, and we're going to ask you to come up to the podium and state your name, position, assigned building, and how many years you've been in education. So, and then, afterwards, we will get into the rest of our meeting, but we'd like everybody to, after they've introduced themselves, to meet over here. And then once that's done, we will applaud, and then you are free to go. You do not have to stay for the entire meeting. So with that said, if we can line up by everybody coming up and getting in a row or a line, starting, whoever wants to be first can be here with me. And everybody else just kind of files in here, and then we will go ahead and begin with this impressive group. So here we go.
Thank you. My name is Laura Narr. I'm the new art teacher at the high school, and I'll also be teaching ceramics. And this is my 23rd year teaching. Thank you. Oh, yes, okay, yep.
Hello, my name is Jason Murphy. I am a 14-year resident of Saline. I've been teaching for 23 years, and this is my 20th year as a school counselor, and I'm at the high school.
Hi, I'm Camille Conrad, and I'm a new 6th grade special education teacher at the middle school, and this is my first year teaching.
Hello, my name is Eric Romans, Saline alum, class of 07. This is my 11th year teaching, and I'm teaching 8th grade U.S. history at the middle school.
Gotta put it down for the short people. Hi, I'm Nicole Shinjak. I am the new SEL coach at the middle school, and this is my 24th year in the school system. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, my name is Emily Real. I'm in my 2nd year of teaching, and I am at Saline Middle School as a 7th grade social studies teacher. Thanks for having me.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Ewald. This is going to be my 2nd year in education, and I am a paraeducator at Heritage.
Good evening. My name is Val Lambert. Oh, I am shorter than everyone. There we go. My name is Val Lambert, and I am the new art teacher at Harvest Elementary, and I'm very happy to be there, and it's my 18th year in education. Yay.
Hi, my name is Diamond Hamilton. I am the new/old SEL coach. I've been in the field for about 5.5 years, and I'm split between 2 different schools.
Hello, I'm David Brooks. I'm the new Dean of Students at the high school. This is my 18th year.
Hello, I'm Christian Koski. I'm the new special education teacher at the middle school. This is my first year teaching in Saline. I do have a few more years. I'm not exactly sure how many total, but I have a few more years in education, so nice to meet everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen O'Keefe. I'm a school psychologist, and I've been teaching 12 years, and I am 4 days a week at Woodland Meadows.
Hi, I'm Dina Schneider. I'm a school psychologist at Pleasant Ridge, as well as the early childhood. I have 10 plus years experience as a school psych, 20 plus years in education. I'm well seasoned, and my kids graduated from Saline High School, so it's nice to be back again.
Hi, I'm Tay. I graduated from Saline in 17. I am a parapro at the middle school, and this is my 3rd year in education.
Hi everybody, my name is Jean Swisher. This is my 1st year in Saline, and I have been in teaching off and on for 13 years, and I am at Harvest doing literacy interventionist or literacy tutor. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, my name is Katie Solenko, and I teach 4th grade at Heritage, and this will be my 2nd year teaching.
Hi, my name is Carmen Woods. I am a 1st-year teacher hired for 4th grade at Heritage, and I'm excited to be here. Go Hornets. Thank you.
Gotta put it down for the short people again. My name is Megan Lepresto. I am the new agri-science teacher and FFA advisor at the high school. And other than my student teaching year, this is my 1st year in teaching, so.
Well, thank you all much. Such a great pleasure to meet you all. And now, she did? Apparently, we already have your photograph, so you are free to leave. Thank you so much. Class dismissed. That's right. We'll just pause for a second. This is the public. We're back to the meeting now. This is the public comment section of the meeting. A member of the public may address the board briefly for up to 3 minutes or request to be scheduled on the agenda of a future meeting. Please note the students will be given priority to speak on any topic. The first public participation portion of the meeting will be limited to 1/2 hour, 30 minutes normally, and limited to agenda items. A second public participation portion will be offered at the end of the agenda to allow for any other comment. Individuals addressing the board should take into consideration the rules of common courtesy. The public participation portion of this meeting can't be used to make personal attacks against a board member, district employee, or student. We have one student speaking and one non-student speaking, so come on up. And I'll let you introduce yourself. Oh, and you know the rules of the timer? Yes. I think is it 1 minute or 30 seconds at the yellow? 30 seconds at the yellow left.
I don't think I'll make it. I think mine's... No, that's okay. My speech is a little shorter than it was last time.
The timer starts when you speak.
Good evening, Dr. Lotch and members of the school board. My name is Em, and I am a sophomore at the high school. I was at the initial presentation of the proposed sex ed curriculum in June, and I would love to see it implemented in Saline schools. I particularly appreciate the proposed use of descriptors other than boy and girl in the new curriculum, as well as the early introduction of male and female as legal or medical labels and how they are different from gender identity. I also agree that topics like consent and harassment should be taught early and reinforced each year. I could spend a lot more time than I have listing all the ways this proposed curriculum is better than the current one, but I'll leave that to the SEAB members. I have completed all of the required health and sex ed classes for K-12 schooling, and I know that the proposed curriculum would have greatly benefited not only my education, but also my overall health and student experience, especially in upper elementary and middle school. The new health and sex education program helps cultivate and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion among students, which is also a key component of the SAS Compass. It will also help students build a better understanding of themselves and others. I hope that you will vote to approve the proposed curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Em. And it is, oh, Megan Gunnarsson, please.
I'm good with the cards. Is it still on? Okay. My name's Megan Gunnarsson. I'm a parent, and I also sat on the SEAB board this year. I know that you are being presented with your second public reading. I do not disagree with the content of that program at all from a parent perspective and professional perspective. I do, again, voice some concerns regarding the target audience for some of the topics. Some of them are awesome, and I would have loved to see my current high schoolers get them in their 9th, 10th, or 11th grade year. I'm a little bit tentative about, again, the target age for some of the lessons. I believe in the diplomatic process and the democratic process, and I'm not here to complain. I'm just saying that that is a concern that I voiced before, and I wanted to state it again. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. There are no other public comments on my roster. Any others? No? Great, thank you. The next part of the meeting is response to previous public comment. I actually don't have a response precisely to that, but I would like to take a point of privilege as the chair to say a very brief statement. Our hearts, all of our hearts as school board trustees and teachers and parents are with the students, staff, and families of the Appalachia High School in Georgia, as you heard about last week. Well, it should be noted that in the midst of the heartbreak and chaos and reported missed opportunities to stop the bloodshed, 2 interventions helped to mitigate the potential for greater loss of life. One of these was a combined effort of the school's 2 very well-trained school resources officers, and the other was a use of a panic button system similar, not exactly the same as, but similar to our own Informacast system that alerted police and other first responders immediately. So I'm horribly saddened that we still need such devices and specialized training these days, but at the same time, these efforts most likely saved many lives. Community members, I can report that Saline Schools remains vigilant and continues to support every effort to keep our children safe. That's really all I have to say about that right now. Revisions or approval of the agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed or revised.
Motion, Gerby.
Gerby to accept the printed motion.
Support, Eastep.
Eastep. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. We have one action. Is that all in favor? Say aye. Did we do that? Okay, I just missed the count. 7-0. All right, thank you. We have one action item. I'd like to entertain a motion to appoint Susan Eastep as the voting delegate and Michael McVeigh as the alternate representing the Saline Board of Education at the 2024 MASB Delegate Assembly being held on Thursday, October 24th, 2024.
So moves, Debon.
Thank you, JS.
Support, Gold.
Thank you, LG. Any quick comment? You've done this before, haven't you, Susan?
Like forever.
All right.
I think all except for my first year, maybe.
And I appreciate that because as the alternate, I've never been called upon. So thank you, thank you.
Yes, I enjoy it very much. Sometimes it can be a long process, and some things that people come up and you wouldn't think would be controversial, but so yeah, it's really good to vote on that, and hopefully everybody can take the opportunity to read it after we get that packet as well. But whenever we do get the packet, please let me know if because I represent the board there. So let me know if there's any questions you have, or if you all want to submit anything on the floor, a proposal or for resolution, I can do that for us.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any other questions, comments, queries, quibbles? No? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, hearing none. Thank you, Susan. I'm sure you'll represent as well. We've now come to the SEAB hearing number 2. I have a brief introduction. You guys can get yourselves, psych yourself up. I'd just like to welcome everybody to the second formal hearing of the Sex Education Advisory Board. Michigan statutes specify that the formation of a Sex Ed Advisory Board, or as is properly called, SEAB, thank you, with very specific parameters regarding its makeup and its charge. So according to Michigan law and our resulting policy, 2418, before we vote to adopt any revisions to the materials or methods used in sex education instruction, the board shall hold at least 2 public hearings on the proposed revisions. We've had our first already, and tonight we'll hold our second public hearing. This evening's Board of Ed meeting has a quorum of board members, so tonight we are joined at the table by co-chairs of the Sex Ed Advisory Board, Kristen Hoffman-Peevler, a little wave, and a parent in the district, and Cameron Cochran, school administrator in the district. Thank you very much. Now we know who's who. I would also like to note that 2 board members were active participants on this committee during the year, Trustee Susan Eastep and Trustee Lauren Gold. The meeting will consist of 2, possibly 3 parts. The co-chairs will provide an overview presentation of the revisions to the curriculum. Members of the board may pose questions to them related to these revisions, although we did pose quite a few questions the first time around, so we might have fewer questions. And I'm going to break with tradition and open the floor to questions directly related to that from the public, rather than have you wait to the very end of the meeting, if that's okay. And again, we'll stick within the 30-minute guideline. I don't know if we'll have many questions, but we'll keep it at that. So on those words, I'd like to hand this over to you, Kristen Hoffman-Peevler and Cameron Cochran.
Point of,
yes.
Sorry, point of order. Are you talking about public comments after?
Clarifying questions following their presentation, yes.
Okay, so Q&A kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
And if I could, especially if they are straightforward clarifying questions. I knew I'd left out a line.
Okay, I didn't know if we needed to vote on moving it up, or we'll still have.
Well, this is going to be part of their presentation, the question part.
Okay.
They're prepared to answer a few questions, right? Skill testing questions.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate that. No need to change the agenda for that. This is the presentation. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Thank you all for gathering for the second public hearing on the recommendation of a new sexual education curriculum for 4th through 8th grades here in Saline. We are excited to, we've got a clicker going here too. There we go. Yeah. Here, let's rock and roll. We're excited to present this information to the stakeholders of Saline area schools after many years of work by the members of multiple terms of the Sex Ed Advisory Board. We'd like to start this evening with a brief tour of our current sex ed curriculum. Following that, we'll talk about our students' need for an updated curriculum, then introduce our recommendation to the public and the Board of Education. I'd like to thank members of the Sex Ed Advisory Board for their work on this. Again, this is multiple iterations of the CEAB in the making. We've spent the past year with this current round of CEAB putting these recommendations together. I'd also like to thank members of the community and staff for their feedback over the past several months since the first public hearing. So what does SAS currently use for sex ed curriculum in the 4th through 8th grade? The term inadequate is not one that I would usually ascribe to anything associated with Saline area schools. However, anyone with the most basic knowledge of our current adolescent health programming would agree that we can do better by our students in this regard. So, great. You can see that in 4th and 5th grade, the information on the concept of puberty has not changed since the introduction of this curriculum that we are currently using. The ways that students... Oh, thank you. Yep. Got it. Thanks. So the ways in which students engage with educational content certainly has changed. The videos are so outdated that the information is getting lost in the awe of the olden days. So sadly, we have teachers on staff at Heritage that as 5th graders viewed this exact same videos as our current students both in Saline and in other districts, with the only change thing being different is that they were using a VHS player at the time. So in 6th and 7th grade at the middle school level, our current curriculum centers on the science of mammalian and human reproduction, which is of course important experiences for students to have in their science classes. The bulk of the text is from 2002 with some updates in 2010. The CEAB felt that there was a need for more robust adolescent health experiences at that level. And then in 8th grade, the current curriculum uses select lessons from the 2010 version of the Michigan Model for Health curriculum. For context, next year's 8th grade class, this year's 8th grade class, where newborns are not yet born when that curriculum was written. Since the early 2000s, the district has made many improvements in a variety of areas. We have heard from students, staff, and families, anecdotally and through survey research, survey responses, that improvements are needed to our adolescent health curriculum.
So, we need an update. The big thing that is very different from when these first curricula were written and introduced is the internet. With the internet at their fingertips, children are accessing, sending, and receiving more sexually explicit information at younger ages than their parents did. This isn't something that our generation had to deal with or face. We had to sneak pictures, sneak looks at magazines and, gas stations and things like that. It wasn't just available to us all the time. 21st century kids have to learn how to navigate the quick and easy access they have to developmentally inappropriate sexual materials. Did you know that 54% of kids have seen or accessed porn before the age of 13? And that the average age of first porn access is less than 12. And in fact, for boys, it's about 10 and a half, and girls, it's just under 11 and a half. And we know that so far, sexting does occur in our district in 5th through 12th grades. It is imperative that we help kids make safe choices by giving them useful and accurate information to guide them. Today's students need comprehensive, evidence-based, and inclusive curriculum in order to provide them with timely and accurate sex ed information before they become sexually active. Myriad studies show that the sooner that we start developmentally appropriate teaching about sexual health, both at home and at school, the safer kids are and remain for longer. Another reason why we need an update is that there is a new law in the state of Michigan. That second thing down there. In July 2023, the Michigan legislature enacted Senate Bill 66 that requires all Michigan school districts to teach and provide materials on sexual assault and consent to all students 6th through 12th grades. This is similar to the HIV law in that it is required teaching that is separate from sexual health education. And that means that regardless of whether or not a district chooses to adopt a formal sex ed curriculum, they still must teach about HIV and AIDS and now sexual assault and consent. A new curriculum will satisfy that new law requirement. We also have new survey data. In 2023, Saline area schools completed a survey of stakeholders, of students, staff, and caregivers to identify the community's thoughts around sex ed teaching and learning. And we're going to review some of the highlights of that survey in a future slide. As Cameron already talked about, it's clear that our curriculum is old. And we know that Saline area schools is committed to best practices in education, and sex ed should align with that mission. Here's the little clicker. So let's look at some data. In a newly published article from the Journal of the American Medical Association, the onset of a girl's first period is about 6 months earlier than in prior decades, at the age of just under 12. And this means that when you think of that bell curve, if the middle is 12, that means there's a significant increase in the number of girls getting their periods at around 8 or 9. And I actually, because puberty is my jam these days, I was at a puberty lecture last night with these amazing puberty gurus. I don't know, I fangirled like it was Justin Bieber. And they said that it's, and this was a good reminder for me, that the onset of first period is actually the midpoint for female bodies for puberty. That they have already had many years of beginning puberty stages before that first period hits. So if we're not giving them education until that midpoint, there's a whole chunk of their experience that we have not acknowledged or addressed. So Washtenaw County, you can see the chart or the data at the bottom there. Washtenaw County participates in the MyFi Health Behavior Survey on odd school years only. And you'll notice that this data shows a marked increase in sexual intercourse from 9th to 11th grade. And this is a clear indicator that what we're currently teaching is not resonating with students or affecting the change that we desire for them. And being able to scaffold information from middle school to high school should decrease those percentages. It's also important to note that of 11 districts in Washtenaw County, only 6 participated in these years. The MyFi survey is the easiest way for our community and for this committee in particular to track the trends in our community. And I would encourage the district to continue participation at the middle school and the high school levels so that we can accurately assess our particular students' needs when it comes to health and safety. So let's look at some national data. In the chart that you're looking at, that is from the National Center for Health Statistics, and it breaks down by age the probability that a person has had vaginal intercourse. You can see that the probability increases at every age over the 2 time periods. Equally concerning is that this report tells us that reported condom use has decreased to less than 50% for females and to less than 60% for males. So more kids are having sex with less protection. And this is only vaginal sex. Oral sex rates are higher at 25 to 28% by the age of 16 and also begins at an average younger age. So how do we help our kids? We help them by acknowledging that sex will be a part of the human experience for most of us, and that giving our kids accurate information before the start of sexual activity only benefits them. Saline Area Schools has long been committed to a comprehensive sex ed curriculum. What does that mean? It means that we are teaching students that sexual health is a whole person commitment. It involves your body, your mind, your heart, and your head. And it aims to provide all the information that you need to make safe and healthy decisions starting in puberty, through teenhood, and into adulthood. Does it include abstinence? Absolutely. And it actually stresses abstinence as the only 100% effective method of prevention for sexual health and well-being. Does a comprehensive curriculum encourage a child to have sex? Actually, it's the complete opposite. For decades, studies have shown that giving kids more information actually makes them less likely to choose to be sexually active. And someday when they do choose to have sex, they're more likely to protect themselves and their partners from STIs and pregnancy. You'll see a few links here at the bottom, these resources, and I want to highlight the first link here. It is an excellent annotated overview from the American Academy of Pediatrics of the need for comprehensive sex ed for school-aged children. The other 2 links below are 2 landmark longitudinal studies that support the link between comprehensive sex ed and decreased early sexual activity and safer choices when they finally do choose to have sex. So that 2023 survey that we talked about, we're going to review a portion of that K-12 Insight survey that we presented to you last year. The entire presentation is linked in this slide for your review. We surveyed current caregivers, students, and staff in our district about the sex ed scope and sequence that we currently use. Across the board, all stakeholders want more information earlier for our students. They want all students included in the curriculum, including students from different cultures and LGBTQ+ students. And they want kids to learn about consent. It was concerning how many comments there were from students about sexual assault and dating violence, and the district data does support that anecdotal evidence. Cameron?
All right. So Kristen highlighted some of the survey results and feedback from students from the MyFi survey. And that was in line with parent concerns and feedback in that MyFi survey as well. So the hope was with updated curriculum to have less shame around adolescent health, around sex and topics related to puberty, and to So yeah, I would encourage you to look at those points. And then a staff summary of concerns as well from the MyFi survey. Teaching of consent, safe technology usage, again, decreasing stigma and shame associated with these topics, and more inclusive instruction. So since the last public hearing, the curriculum has been available for public review, and during that time, families and staff members have provided feedback. While the overall response rate compared with the total number of families and staff in our district has been low, feedback has been very positive. Families appreciated the proposed changes as being comprehensive, age-appropriate, and inclusive. Additionally, those that have reviewed the curriculum and provided feedback appreciate the holistic approach in addressing topics related to adolescent health. Some families and staff members have expressed some concerns related to the new curriculum, and so Kristen and I wanted to take a few minutes in response to those concerns and feedback. So one of the topics that was addressed in the last public hearing was mention of sex trafficking at the middle school as a practice that you should be never asked to engage in, being paid for sex or sex acts, and defining that as sex trafficking. The CAB, after feedback, made the decision to remove that topic, and some felt that we should leave it in. At this time, we have decided to continue to keep that topic out of the proposed curriculum. Other concerns and feedback from staff and families, concerns related to mixed gender classrooms. So there was a question during the last public hearing on whether or not we would be teaching in a mixed gender setting. Currently at Heritage in the 4th and 5th grade, we teach in, boys are taught with boys, girls are taught with girls, and that's students go to the classroom in which they identify with. The feedback from some staff is that students will be uncomfortable being in a mixed gender setting while learning about topics related to puberty, so much so that they won't retain the information or be able to focus on the topics at hand. Our response to that feedback is that adolescent health instruction in a mixed gender setting is seen as the gold standard for a number of reasons. And primarily, the setting promotes empathy and reduces shame around sensitive topics. The method of instruction also provides a safe learning environment for all students within their known cohort, since trusting relationships have already been built and nurtured in their classroom. If I'm a 4th or 5th grader, I would prefer to have my adolescent health instruction taught by my teacher who I've known all year, as adolescent health is taught in the spring. So again, our response to that is that we want to make sure that students are feeling comfortable. We acknowledge that there may be families and students that will not feel comfortable with that, and we want to respect those wishes as well.
Another concern from staff was defining masturbation at the 5th grade level. And our response to that is that masturbation is a normal and healthy part of human sexuality. And it's difficult for us to pair the idea of masturbation and kids. But we grown-ups are looking at masturbation through an adult lens. And kids, on the other hand, learn very early, usually in toddlerhood, that masturbation feels good and relieves stress. And it's not considered a sexual act to children. They're not carrying the baggage of adulthood and the things that we know in the same way. They just know that something feels good. So by naming and defining masturbation in a simple and developmentally appropriate way, we reduce shame and fear around the behavior, and we define expectations that this is a private but normal behavior. As such, the committee does agree as a group that defining masturbation in 5th grade, not 4th, just 5th, is an appropriate curricular addition.
Another concern was related to defining terms related to gender identity and or sexual orientation, and that it may be uncomfortable for some families and staff members, as well as students. Our response is that there's a lot to learn about the many ways in which humans identify and express their gender. SAS can provide lists of resources for staff and families to learn before or alongside their students, so that they can be comfortable knowing and using terms and definitions in a way that feels both comfortable to the speaker and also models kindness and acceptance of difference to students.
Another concern was the frequent use of the term sexual in different parts of the lessons without having a definition for sex for elementary students. This curriculum, the Positive Prevention Plus curriculum, does recommend that sex be defined in 4th grade, but based on feedback and the committee discussion that we had, we've chosen to keep that lesson in 6th grade as it is currently taught in Saline area schools. And as we talked about in the beginning of the presentation, is that kids know way more about sex than we think they do. And even if they don't have that detailed definition of sexual intercourse, they can intuit the arena that is being referenced. And there was a question about whether we could have an approved definition for the word sexual for elementary students. And a good definition of that is sexual is an adjective that describes how people like or love others. And that it can also be used to describe body systems and the human experience. That's what I got for that.
One final concern that was brought up by some staff members is the inability to make changes to the curriculum once it's approved after going through this process that is mandated by the state. While the CIAB stands behind the recommended curriculum as it's proposed, we acknowledge that the process of training and implementation of this curriculum falls on district leadership, school administration, and teachers. The removal of pieces of the approved curriculum is within the scope of building stakeholders in collaboration with district administration and the CIAB. So, we want to show you some highlights of the new curriculum. Our team reviewed 4 different curricula written for our target age group of the 4th through 8th grades. We narrowed it down to 2 and then did a deep dive into those 2 curricula. And after significant discussion over multiple months, the CIAB voted unanimously with 1 abstention to move Positive Prevention Plus forward to the public hearing process. P3, as we like to call it, is aligned with national sexual health education standards. It is aligned with SAS policies, our mission, and our goals. It is an evidence-based comprehensive curriculum. It is aligned with best practice in sexual health education. P3 is regularly reviewed every 2 years, but that we also want to point out that updates would always go through the Michigan Department of Ed process for sexual education curriculum and board approval. One of the things that we really like about this curriculum is that it grows with our students, using consistent language and methods of instruction starting in the 4th grade and then spiraling up into 8th and even beyond. We will now begin to tell you about some of our recommendations. This is an important time to remind everyone that per Michigan law, SAS families have the right to review curriculum, resources, and videos ahead of time to observe instruction and opt their children out of adolescent health if they choose to do so. Public review of the recommended updates will still be available at Heritage School until the curriculum is voted on by the Board of Education. Community members and staff members interested in reviewing the curriculum and materials are encouraged to email me or Kara Davis to schedule a time to do so. All right. So looking at our scope and sequence for the 4th grade, one nice thing about the P3 curriculum is that it is designed to be flexible. That means that districts can create the sequence of lessons that works for their particular district needs and the needs of their students. In the next few slides, we will give an overview of the recommended scope and sequence for each grade level and highlight key parts of lessons in greater detail. The upper elementary curriculum consists of 8 lessons divided between 4th and 5th grades. Currently, adolescent health is taught in 4th and 5th grades over the course of about 1 week in the spring, and the proposed curriculum would be consistent with this in this regard. 4th and 5th graders are really starting to get a sense of the world around them and who they are within it. At Heritage, we frame a lot of what we do using the 3 B's: be respectful, be responsible, and be kinder than necessary. Positive Prevention Plus at the upper elementary curriculum does a great job complementing our existing values at Heritage. In the 4th grade, you can see that there are 6 lessons that help students begin to understand some of the changes that they are currently going through, or will be going through soon, and support with being a kind and respectful peer. Anytime conversations around puberty and reproductive health occur at school, framing the conversation matters. The P3 curriculum not only emphasizes why these topics are important, but in Lesson 1, it goes over how these lessons in class should go. Lesson 1 establishes group norms and discusses reliable sources of information, but cautions that some websites can give inaccurate information, and that students should always get parent permission before going online. Additionally, Lesson 1 stresses that a trusted adult is the best place to go to for information. In 4th and 5th grade, Lessons 2 and 3 go over how to be a good friend, how to manage conflict with a friend, and how to avoid getting bullied or taken advantage of by a close friend or someone else. Lesson 3 also discusses cyberbullying and includes defining sexting as a form of cyberbullying. While topics related to friendship and peer conflict are covered elsewhere at Heritage, including bullying, tying these issues to adolescent health gives students an important reminder that social changes will accompany the mental and physical changes that they will soon or are already experiencing through puberty. P3 does a great job using consistent language throughout the curriculum so that these concepts and skills build on one another. Some people outside of education may be surprised at the thought of discussing something like sexting in 4th grade. While few students are impacted by cyberbullying and sexting at Heritage, issues like these have happened and occur even more frequently in the middle school. If we can proactively equip our students with knowledge and skills around these topics, we could have a positive impact on our students' lives and help avoid some serious missteps. The CIAB wanted to prioritize accurate information to help students understand the changes happening in their bodies. We felt that P3 was the best of the options we reviewed in this regard. In Lesson 4, puberty is explained as a normal process of human development that has physical, mental, social, and emotional impacts. The committee wanted to be responsive to community feedback about the need for more inclusive curricula. We appreciated the fact that P3 utilizes inclusive language and covers topics such as gender and sexual identity in an age-appropriate way. For example, in Lesson 4, which occurs in 4th and 5th grade, the following terms are defined: biological sex, gender, sexual identity, gender identity, gender expression, and transgender. These topics are presented and defined in a gentle and developmentally appropriate way. Research from a variety of sources shows that introducing these topics in school can help create a safer environment for all students. These definitions are clear, concise, and make up a brief portion of the overall unit. Any questions related to these terms will be addressed by encouraging students to speak to a trusted adult at home. Here's what a copy of the first page of the teacher manual looks like for Lesson 4, which includes handouts for students. You can see the materials and the content covered, as well as some vocabulary and objectives. All right, so in 5th grade, you'll notice that there are repeated lessons, lessons 4, 6, and 8. And this is purposeful, since spiraling information from year to year will improve student learning and retention. Note that in Lesson 5, as Kristen mentioned earlier, that Part E that defines sexual intercourse will be removed from 5th grade and moved into 6th. The lesson still includes reproductive structure and function for both male and female anatomy, and this is consistent with the current curriculum scope and sequence. So this is consistent with what we currently teach in 5th grade at Heritage. Lesson 5 also defines ejaculation and masturbation. You can see here we're talking about private parts. Again, both reducing stigma, but also emphasizing the importance for privacy. One other aspect that's important in this curriculum is that we're not only talking about the changes that are happening within our bodies and about being a good friend and respectful, but also empowering oneself and advocating for oneself. And we'll talk more about that as we go throughout this presentation. So adolescent health is taught in the spring at Heritage each year, typically in May. Fifth graders will soon be middle schoolers at this time. It is important to provide this information to students to prepare them for the changes ahead. Defining these terms in a concise way opens up the opportunity for deeper conversations at home. And as you can see, the definition of masturbation is listed on this slide. Lessons 6 through 8 all focus on healthy habits. Lesson 6 is covered in 4th and 5th grades and reminds students about keeping their bodies clean. There's also a great video on menstruation shown in both grades that covers what the menstrual cycle is and available hygiene products. In Lesson 7, we fulfill the state law to teach HIV in every building where adolescent health is taught. The committee recommends removing the discussion on other STIs in this lesson and solely focus on HIV. Another important component of the recommended curriculum is its focus on consent and refusal skills in an age-appropriate way. These concepts will already be taught in K-3 buildings during the body safety presentations that were approved last year and will be reviewed during adolescent health in the 4th through 8th grades. In Lesson 8, consent is covered in the 4th and 5th grades. The committee had a lengthy discussion on whether or not to include this lesson in its entirety because of the mention of sex trafficking, as an example of something one should never be asked to do. Ultimately, the committee decided to only recommend showing the consent video in 4th grade, omitting the rest of Lesson 8 at that grade level. For 5th grade, the committee decided to recommend showing the consent video again and covering parts C through F of Lesson 8 that do not mention sex trafficking. Parts C through F focus on staying physically and mentally healthy, and some sample slides are shown here. All right. So within the P3 curriculum, there are embedded videos within each lesson that help frame the main theme of that conversation. You'll notice that at each grade level, the CIAB decided to add some supplemental videos for some topics. These videos are meant to engage students and to help further explain certain important concepts. A large majority of these topics are addressed in the current curriculum. The recommended updates from Positive Prevention Plus provide a more engaging, modern, and inclusive experience for Saline area school students. For the sake of time, we will not be showing all of the 6 recommended supplemental videos for 4th and 5th grades. The videos are listed here and can all be accessed through YouTube. We will show the consent video as an example, as well as one of the embedded videos included in Lesson 1. If we could show that one, Ben, and then I may need screencast access for the embedded video.
Consent for kids. This is you. Okay, it doesn't look exactly like you, but let's say it's you. This is your body, and you get to decide what you do with your body. No one else is entitled to tell you what to do with your body. Not your friends, not strangers, not adults you know. No one is entitled to decide what you do with your body. Except you. That's called bodily autonomy, by the way. And that's what consent is all about. Everyone is different. Some people love to hug, and some people hate hugs. And each person gets to decide what they're comfortable with. Can a hug-loving person just start hugging someone at random? Nope. They need consent. How do people know if they have consent? They ask. Would you like a hug?
Yes, I would. Can I hold your hand?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
If a person doesn't say yes,
Can I hug you?
then they haven't given their consent. It's really pretty simple. Ask for consent, listen to the answer. By the way, if a person bribes someone or threatens someone to say yes, that's not consent. Sometimes adults will try to tell a kid what to do with their body.
Go kiss Aunt Doris goodbye.
But the kid still gets to decide. No thanks, that makes me uncomfortable. I'll just wave goodbye. Some things kids can't consent to. They can't enter into legal contracts. They can't vote. And they can't consent to sexual stuff, 'cause they're kids. So if an adult does something that kids can't consent to, that's not okay. The adult is wrong, and it's not the kid's fault. And that's when it's most important to tell a trusted adult, like a teacher. Why? Because it's your body, and no one else is entitled to tell you what to do with it. Practice consent.
Is it possible for me to screencast for the... It's okay if we can't. We can try to do it at the end. I've got a wheel spinning for me. Oh, here we go. Thanks for your patience, folks. No, we can just skip it for now, Ben, and go back to the presentation. So I just wanted to highlight one of the embedded videos. Each lesson, there is a brief video at the beginning and at the end. Again, the focus of those videos are more to frame the topic. They include characters in the 4th and 5th grade. They're animated videos. They're pretty, hokey, but we enjoyed them. And again, the reason we added the supplemental videos is because we felt really good about the content within those videos as well. All right. So let's get into middle school. Similar to 4th and 5th grade, the recommended lessons for 6th graders include topics meant to help students understand some of the changes that they are currently going through or will be going through soon, as well as support with being a kind and respectful peer. We'll go back to the scope and sequence. Oh, sorry. So in lesson 2, 6th graders are introduced, we'll go back to the 6th grade.
Where do babies come from? Like, how do we get here? When broken down, it's a simple thing. Every species reproduces, but in different ways. For humans to make a baby, there's lots of stuff that must be just right. But the two key players are the sperm and the egg. At puberty, everyone's body changes and becomes able to reproduce. At some point between the age of 8 to 13, a person that is biologically a female starts ovulating. It's also called the menstrual cycle, or starting their period. About once a month, the ovaries release a teeny tiny egg into the fallopian tubes. If it's not fertilized after it's released, the egg is flushed out of the body during the period. When a person that is biologically male starts puberty, usually between 12 and 16, the testicles begin to make sperm cells. These cells travel in milky fluid created by another gland. This mixture is known as semen. This is the fluid that is released during an ejaculation. ways a sperm and egg can get together and join. One of the most popular ways is when semen is released from the penis into the vagina. Once those little swimmers are in there, the sperm race through the vaginal canal, past the cervix, through the uterus, into the fallopian tubes. Sperm are drawn to the egg like a moth to a flame. Now, if you don't want to become pregnant when you have sex, there are a lot of simple ways to stop it from happening. We call this contraception. When you want to have a baby, sometimes people are not able to have a baby using the most popular method. When this happens, doctors can totally help them out, like using a tool to place sperm into the vagina near an egg. Or, a doctor can actually join the sperm and egg together outside of the body, and then place the fertilized egg into the uterus. All these methods achieve the same thing. The sperm and the egg get together and unite, becoming a single cell. This is called a zygote. As the zygote travels down the fallopian tube towards the uterus, looking for a place to nest, this tiny ball of cells divides and multiplies over and over and over. If the zygote does not find a good nesting spot in the uterine lining, it passes out of the body during menstruation or the period. If the zygote does find a nesting place, this marks the moment when pregnancy actually begins, and the fetus starts to grow into what is called an embryo. The time it takes for a baby to develop is divided into 3 stages called trimesters. It takes an embryo about 9 months or 39 weeks to develop into a fully developed baby. The zygote starts the size of a poppy seed and grows into the size of, well, a baby. Most of a pregnancy takes place in the warm and comfy uterus, also known as the womb. It has all the nutrients needed for that little ball of cells to develop into a fully formed body. During the 39th week, a fetus is considered full term. After about 9 months, a baby is generally ready to enter the world. There are several different ways a baby can make their appearance into the world. They usually come through the vagina, but sometimes, if necessary, doctors need to help them out. They do this by opening the uterus and removing the baby that way. This is called a cesarean section, or a C-section for short. Making babies is a natural part of life, and we all start from the joining of a sperm and egg. We're all more alike than you think.
So to clarify, that video would be occurring during lesson 1 of 6th grade in middle school. And if you were here in June when we did our first public hearing, you might remember that we had 2 possible videos that we were recommending. This video and then one from Planned Parenthood. We were going to see if it would be possible to trim that video to remove the very end of that would say something along the lines of, for more questions, go to PlannedParenthood.com. We're unable to trim that, and so we're no longer recommending that video because we know that some families and staff would feel uncomfortable with that resource being made available, and so we're just recommending this video to be shown during lesson 1 in 6th grade. All right, so, and it's important to note that that video is supplemental to the content in lesson 1. Intercourse is defined at this time, which is the same as the current curriculum that's taught in 6th grade. And this is from removing that lesson E, or part E of lesson 5 from 5th grade into 6th. So this section is called Conception to Birth and includes an explanation of how the process occurs from sexual intercourse, fertilization, growth of an embryo to childbirth. Importantly, this lesson also explains the importance of choosing to have a child as well as abstinence. All right. And then in lesson 2, 6th graders are introduced to terms related to gender and sexuality. As in upper elementary, these terms are introduced in a brief, simple, and age-appropriate way that is meant to inform and encourage respect for all individuals. Importantly, another component of adolescent health that P3 emphasizes is self-empowerment. When students can recognize unsafe situations and advocate for themselves, we can create happier, healthier school communities. So in lessons 3 and 4, 6th and 7th graders discuss topics related to exploring friendships and bullying, similar to lessons 3 and 4 in 4th and 5th grade. So in lesson 4 and 3, we spiral the information on exploring friendships and bullying and abuse, and then we recommend addressing HIV and STIs. And that would occur in lesson 12, although we are only recommending parts A and B in lesson 12, which teaches how viruses are spread and eliminates how to find resources for testing. It is an excellent information in a well-planned format, but we felt that it did not fit our community's particular needs at the middle school level. So there's the scope and sequence for grade 7. And then here are some resources for students that they will complete during those lessons. These resources come specifically from lesson 11 on media and peer pressure.
Woof, that's been a lot. We've hit 8th grade. Home stretch. We're so excited. I'm gonna just update our little cheat sheet here. We have hit 8th grade. Here's the scope and sequence of 8th grade, and you'll notice here that the biggest differences from the current curriculum. The committee feels really strongly that solely covering sexual reproduction from a biology textbook is insufficient given the complex challenges and social situations of middle school students and what they face today. With the updated curriculum, we have the opportunity to empower students with more knowledge and tools to maneuver through the challenges of adolescence in this 21st century. You can see that the sequence begins with a quick review of anatomy from the 6th grade lesson 1. It's really important that students know their body parts, what their names are, what their function is. I feel like my back is to you guys the whole time. I'm so sorry. That's rude. That is empowering information, and that that quick review is going to help solidify those things. Again, that's spiraling back to catch kids' gaps in knowledge. And then it moves into the prevention of pregnancy, including birth control options, and then teen pregnancy itself, which includes fetal development, alternatives to keeping the baby, and decision making. And please note that in accordance with Michigan law, this lesson does not mention abortion as an option. Here's an example of a slide from lesson 6. You can see that this curriculum leans into abstinence in many of the lessons, like in this slide. It's even in red. And then here's the slide that shows options for pregnancy and does not include abortion. Here's a slide from the fetal development section. This shows the type of information that's addressed during the fetal development lesson. This slide is of trimester 1. And in lesson 6, we also address STIs, which are a very real consequence of sexual activity at any age. And again, you see here the abstinence messaging. And you might be thinking, why can't we just leave it at that and say, just don't have sex? Because kids need the why. Why is it important to wait? Why do we need to be prepared mentally, physically, and emotionally for sexual activity? Teens are pretty concrete thinkers for quite a while because of the way that brain development works during puberty and adolescence. And yet, they're also in that wing stretching time of their development. This slide shows actionable choices for teens to be in control and keep themselves safe. The more you practice these things in theory, the more it is solidified in you as ownership that you can access that stuff in the heat of a moment. We want the students to own that information long before they're in a decision-making situation. Just like we practice stop, drop, and roll, we also practice other healthy information and choices, and we pair it with something that they already know. For example, universal precautions. This generation of kids survived a pandemic. They know this stuff. So let's review this and then apply the same logic to sexual health, introducing condoms and the vital role they play before a student is in a sexual situation increases the chance that they'll remember the importance of condom use with sex. Do we want the first choice to be abstinence? Absolutely. So let's reinforce that message again before we wrap up the lesson. And let's address why making safe choices is so important. Here are two of the activities in the final lesson of 8th grade. This is the why that every teen is looking for. There are also a few supplemental videos in the middle school, and these reinforce the messaging of the discussion in a visual format. Kids spend a lot of time watching videos and being online. And this is meeting them where they are in a way that they like to learn information. One of the parts of P3 that we absolutely love is the appendix of parent resources and education, because sex ed starts at home with a million tiny little conversations. And because it can be difficult for some grown-ups to get started with those conversations, we love that P3 recognizes and supports the importance of those caregiver conversations with their kids. And having this appendix of resources and the grown-up and student homework after the lessons gives caregivers lots and lots of opportunities for talking with their students on their own time and with their own values included. Here are a couple of examples of the parent resources in the appendix. You can see one is guidelines for parents to talk with their kids and teens about sexuality, and then all the burning questions parents may have about sexting. Now, I'm a parent of teens, and I recognize that in all sorts of different ways, my job is to ready my kids to move through the world on their own. And I have to balance my rules and my expectations with their emerging independence so that when I'm not there, they have the information at the ready to make safe choices for themselves, even if that looks different than what I might hope for them and what I might have planned for them. And that process of trust building takes time and attention. And talking about healthy human sexuality with our kids is part of that trust building independence project that we are all doing called parenting. And this curriculum supports that work that we get to do at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It looked like you were going to say something, Cam. No?
No.
Well, thank you very much. Well done. Thank you very much for this great presentation. One thing I neglected to say at the beginning was that there are some members of the SEAB committee in the audience tonight, and I'm not going to call you out specifically, but I did want to say on behalf of the board, thank you for your many efforts in bringing this to us. I'm going to open now to the board for questions if you have any. Unfortunately, Vice President Stebbin was unable to attend last time, so I'm going to offer the first set of questions, if she has any, to her, and then at random, anyone who has questions to fire off. If you haven't had your questions answered yet, please do so. Thank you.
Thank you both. That was really comprehensive. As Michael mentioned, I was on vacation during the last one. I believe it was in June. So I do really like us pairing this with a traditional board meeting because it ensures that we can all be present, and I think it conforms to the policy as well. So this worked out really well. And thank you to the rest of the committee, of course. A couple of questions, and I'll probably follow up with some questions offline if that's okay via email. But if we did adopt this, can you talk to me about what the training looks like? Because the policy does describe that you need qualified, certified staff doing it, and that it needs to be done in an organized manner. So I was just wondering, and Steve or whomever, if that's a question for somebody else, that's fine. But what is the forward plan if this is adopted?
Yeah, that's a great question. At this time, we don't know what that would look like. There are options available to us. So, two of those options are through Positive Prevention Plus in the way of both virtual training and an in-person trainer coming into our district to provide that experience for staff. We also have contacts at the WISD that would be willing to do some training, just kind of not necessarily with the specific curriculum, but just best practice in adolescent health education and kind of working alongside us as we go through the curriculum with our staff. We'd be working closely with Kara Davis and the teaching and learning team as well, and talking about training and funding that and all those questions.
Okay, thank you. It's just really important in all facets to make sure that the law and the policies are adhered to. So just want to make sure we support the staff that would roll this out. If you guys can unobstruct the K-12 survey presentation link, we can't get access to the data behind that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the raw data behind that we can look at? Okay, perfect, because that's wonderful. My other question was on Senate Bill 66. It looks like it has a 2023 date on it. So how are we fulfilling that legal requirement right now if we don't have that incorporated into this curriculum?
So the new law was passed in July of 2023, and June of 2024, so this past June, is when we needed to start having a plan put in place for the 24-25 school year. If this curriculum does not pass, then we will have to quickly create consent and sexual assault resources for that, because currently our curriculum does not cover those things, and so we would be non-compliant without doing a mad dash for resources.
Okay, yeah, very important.
Yes.
I really like that this includes information on sexting, yes, videos, meeting kids where they're at, I totally agree, consent and sexual assault as described by that law. It's incredibly important. My last question, and then I'll probably get with you guys offline while I'm reviewing the curriculum, but how long did the review process and the in committee? Can you talk a little bit about the journey and kind of the depth of discovery on the other items that you were considering and how it arrived here?
Yeah, so this conversation actually started 10 years ago. And this is the third term of the Sexual Education Advisory Board that has been working toward a new curriculum for Saline area schools. As we know in academia, change is very, very slow. And it has taken a lot of discussion with a lot of separate boards to get to a place where we could have these different curricula to review. So having had the great honor of being part of the last two, as well as this term, I have had these conversations with two separate SEBs and now this third one around these exact same topics. And the thing that's really great is that with this sort of reiteration of each committee, the same curricula keep coming up and keep coming back for review. And I think that's a real testament to the curricula that we were able to review, that these are really, really solid, well-known curricula. And the work that this committee did was a springboard off of the previous committee, where we were able to say, here are the things that the previous committee had sort of narrowed to, which was able to spur us on, and we were able to meet just about monthly, right? Mm-hmm. For this last school year. So about 12 months of work. Yeah.
Thank you. Those are my questions for the table.
Okay.
Thanks.
I do want to remind students, you are also welcome to ask any questions if they strike you. So I'm just going to let us Ben, I'm going to just let us randomly ask the questions around the table if we have any. Tommy.
I wasn't at the first meeting, so I'll just get right to my questions to respect you and your time. One comment that came up while you were presenting was a concern about age and how young kids are getting exposed to these materials. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember who said it. I think one of you might have made the claim that by like 4th and 5th grade, students are figuring out who they are and their place in the world, and they're starting to gain more of that independence. And I would just like to ask, how is that being factored into the content being taught to the younger generation? A lot of the lessons involved were about consent and sexual orientation and sexual intercourse and terms like ejaculation and erection. And the mention of abstinence was more stressed towards the 8th grader after those initial lessons. My concern, the only concern that I see is if we're trying to prevent and get them a head start at an early age, how is that those caution barriers and those lessons built in from the start?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Tommy. So because the curriculum is so dense, we were not able to show you every single piece of the curriculum. And so what we wanted to pull out was the sort of touch points where people can potentially have concerns around it and show you that this is very developmentally appropriate. So actually, what you saw here tonight is a very small part of the curriculum, and most of it would feel very similar to what you had when you were in 4th and 5th grade, where you're talking about body changes and what does your body do, and the structures and the names of things. The other pieces are additions, but not the main bulk of it. And so if you were to sit in on a lesson or the whole week of the new curriculum, you'd be like, oh yeah, this feels really familiar. I totally remember this. Yeah. So it just adds a few things that your generation has to deal with on a pretty regular basis versus us dinosaurs who didn't have things like the internet, and like I was 20 or something when I got my first cell phone because they didn't exist before that, right? So there's extra things. Did that answer your question fully?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Awesome.
I have a younger sister that's around that age group,
Right,
so when I'm
yeah.
learning stuff like this, it's kind of like scary to me. But then I also realize that it's going to happen eventually, and it might take some adjusting on my part to be open and have her learn that at an appropriate age. The other question that I had was there's a lot of talk about removing shame and removing like a stigma behind a lot of these concepts, especially around masturbation, how it feels good and how it's a natural part and it should be a private part of a natural part. Mm-hmm. And that tying that back into what I said first with the frequency of the sexual events at the middle school and high school. What is the balance between having that be a part of your human progression and your like transition into older and young adulthood, and the limits to that for a younger audience? Yeah.
So have you ever, like if you think back in your life, have you ever thought, like had an experience or done something where you're like, that might have been a bad choice, right? And you didn't really have a name for what you did or a lot of context in it, but you felt sort of icky about it or weird about it. That can apply to masturbation with kids. For a lot of kids, it's something that they already do and experience, but they don't have a name for it, and they might feel like, I know these are my private parts because it's covered by a swimming suit, but I'm doing this thing and maybe it's weird and maybe it's wrong and maybe there's something wrong with me. If you are able to just put a name to something and say, totally normal. If you do it, great. If you don't, that's great too, whatever, right? It is a wash through the curriculum. There's not like 40 minutes spent on masturbation, and there's not a how-to, and there's not a huge dwelling on that. It's just saying, hey, some people do this. Normal, private, because there are kids that masturbate at school. And it's not a ton, but it is regular. And it is also helpful for the kids that don't do those things at school to be able to be like, so I noticed Billy has his hands down his pants, or Jane is whatever, with that. And to be able to say, I think they might need a reminder, or I feel uncomfortable because I know this, right? That this is a private behavior. Does that answer that for you?
Yes, thank you. That was the only comments or concerns I have.
Yeah.
Since I've already gone through this, and I'm not. Yeah. That wasn't the first meeting, so thank you. Thank you for all the information that you gathered.
I appreciate the questions.
Just want to say thank you, Tommy. You raised the bar on questions, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
No pressure, Kate. Anyone else on the board moving along? No, Susan and Jenny. Jenny and Susan.
I was just gonna say, because I do teach elementary school, just adding on to the topic that Tommy was bringing up, I think that one thing that is going to be extremely beneficial to the adults that are supporting children is helping children to identify that some of those behaviors are private. Yes. Because I've worked with young children for a long time, some things like masturbation can be very self-soothing, and kids they're not even aware that doing something that brings comfort, the same as like kids might rub their blankets or things like that, they might not even be aware that that's different than rubbing your blanket. And so helping them to understand that masturbation, because it involves parts that are private, is a private activity. Yes. And so I feel like that is going to be really beneficial for the adults who are supporting kids in identifying and then making choices around that. So.
Thank you, Susan.
Oh, yes. A couple of things. So I had a community member ask about the opt-out, and they had mentioned kind of some of the stigmatizing piece of that. There's a lot of stigmatizing in our current curriculum. So basically the opt-out. I guess we've heard from parents come up to the podium and talk about opting out and how that looks different from year to year, from building to building, classroom to classroom, whenever a child is pulled from the classroom. So I guess how is that, and I know that CAB doesn't do that, that's a legal requirement, so it might be a question for the administrators as well, but making sure that we have consistency in that and that the parents understand, and even the students, in how that would look.
Yeah, the opt-out topic is an important one to address. I agree that consistency is essential, and that's definitely a topic that we as an administrative team will continue to discuss. I know Kara Davis has led a lot of work on our district opt-out guidelines that involve both adolescent health and other topics in different classes. At Heritage, students are, there's a parent information night. Parents are given that opportunity to review materials and then make that decision. We feel confident at Heritage that we'll be able to do kind of a lesson by lesson opt-out in the 4th and 5th grades. It's something similar to what we've done in the past. Some classes have done things like students who opt out will be encouraged to research another body system. And the purpose of that alternative assignment is not to punish, it's not to, make them feel like they're missing out. It's really just to encourage learning. And so the emphasis is not on the grade that the student will get for something like that, but really just on, again, making sure that while that student's at school, they're provided access to learning. I don't have a lot of specifics at this time about what the opt-out looks like at the middle school with adolescent health, but I would be confident that would be something similar and in line with our district opt-out guidelines.
Well, thank you.
I wasn't
not finished
done,
yet?
but yeah. I'll go, I just have more of a statement, so if everybody
I don't
wants to
think
go
anyone
first,
else
that's-
has anything to say. Jenny might, yeah.
No, I was just going to say for public and for people who might not be aware that the district opt-out is a district tool, but opting out of sex education is state law. Right. That we offer that. So I just wanted to make it clear that that's not something that we've decided, that's something that the law requires and that we comply with. And so that's not something that this board or any board would be able to change. So if that is a concern about this curriculum, just know that that is something that is in place, and I see it being in place for the foreseeable future.
And something that the CAB feels very protective of. Like, that is an extraordinarily important part of the sex education curriculum here, is that we recognize that sex education is a family thing first, and what we do here is hopefully meant to supplement what you are doing at home. And if you don't want to do that, totally cool. Yeah.
And just to add on to that, again, one of the draws for this particular curriculum is the wealth of resources for parents and families at home. And so for those families who do make that decision to opt their students out of, lessons or of the entire curriculum, we would want to give them access to those materials so that they could, we could help in having those conversations at home, and they would be the leaders of any of those conversations, whether or not students were opted out.
I think that the biggest key difference and the thing that we're really fortunate to have is that when parents do have concerns about curriculum and come in to take a look at the curriculum and they're making choices or decisions about which pieces to omit for their child, that our team, headed by Kara Davis, is there to support those decisions. So for example, those potential alternate assignments would be a decision that is made together so that the child, like you said, has access to learning. And so we're really fortunate to have resources and personnel like Kara to help us and help families, support families with those decisions.
Yeah, and another really big plus about the P3 curriculum is that it is based in modules, and so it's very easy for families to go through and say, day 3, I want my kid to be out. So that it is not trying to pick and choose moments to pull a kid out of, but to say and make it easy for staff and families and students to know where they're supposed to be, what is supposed to happen, and not try to manage minutia in that. It's really well designed in that way. So.
You had something else to add, Susan?
Oh, yes. So I'm glad that CIAB, you all did a fantastic job. The last few years that I've served on as board rep, I think this last go around, it was very efficient, and everybody worked together and reviewed, and I thought it was awesome. Thank you all. And so I'm glad that after getting the data and everything, you all moved fairly quickly, I guess, to make recommendations on a part of our curriculum. So I know that we are not recommending, or you all aren't recommending at this point, the high school curriculum. So I do want to, I hope that we move very quickly on that. I think you all have a great process where that could be efficient. I do want to read, I think I've done this in the past, portions of policies that we have. So we have board policies, and that must be implemented. And I know there is a process as well. So board policy 2260, non-discrimination and access to equal education opportunity, curriculum content. Reviewing current and proposed courses of study and textbooks to detect any bias based on protected classes, asserting whether or not supplemental materials, singly or taken as a whole, fairly depict the contribution of all genders, various races, ethnic groups, toward the development of human society. Also required with that is staff training to identify some of those problems with bias in the curriculum and all aspects of the program. I also want to bring up the policy 5517.02, the transgender and non-binary students. Currently, our high school curriculum is super outdated as well. It is not at all inclusive of our trans and non-binary students. So what I just read, we have an issue, right? Part of in that with the curriculum, the SAS Compass talks about the ethical and responsible citizen. And so that students demonstrate this attribute when they see beyond themselves to the needs of others, contribute to their community, promote equity, and take responsibility for the environment and demonstrate respect, empathy, and compassion. Also, research shows that LGBTQ students who attend schools with curriculum that is inclusive of LGBTQ people, history, and events experience a better school climate and improved academic outcomes. And I know having, the curriculum that you're proposing also reduces, creates a better and safe environment and reduces bullying. And so, I wanted to mention that, not only LGBTQ students, but, being able to represent race, ethnicity, all of that is super important. So again, I'm glad that I feel like the curriculum that we're looking at right now excels at that, and I'm super excited. I'm not so excited that our high schoolers aren't going to receive that at this point anytime soon. So I super encourage that. It's a board policies, and I encourage that our administrators follow through with that as well. Thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, board. Tommy?
I had a quick follow-up question following your comments, and I do agree that this updated curriculum is much more inclusive. I know that politics and opinions aside, it's a curriculum designed for educational purposes only, regardless of like your opinions or your stance on many of these things. With the changes being made to this and using terms like human with penis and human with vagina, and having then lessons talking about like same-sex attraction, gender studies, and like sexual orientation, how is that balance between using like non-descriptive terms such as human with penis and then using stuff like same-sex attraction and building that into like the two different categories?
Yeah, I think I understand your question. So I think the big difference is that this curriculum and the way that sex ed is moving as we learn and know more is the idea that sex and gender are two very different things. Sex is a biological body-based thing, and gender is how you show yourself to the world and how you feel who you are inside. And so when you say things like person with a vagina, the people in the room who have a vagina know that they have it, right? And so they go, oh, that's my body. Awesome. They're not going, wait, why aren't you calling me a girl, right? They're just going, that's me. Okay, I got to listen up, right? And so those moments aren't going to feel weird to kids because they're just going, I can't believe we have to hear the word penis over and over and over again, right? It doesn't matter if you're in a same-sex gender or same-sex classroom or if you're in a mixed gender, everybody gets nervous when you say the P word, right? It's just part of being a kid. And, for a lot of adults, it's hard to say. So I think that might have answered your question, did it?
Yeah,
Do you have any
did.
other follow-up from that?
No, I didn't.
No?
Okay. I wanted to just point out and ask like if that had been considered, but it seems like the curriculum that you have been talking about and discussed have already thought a lot about that, and I appreciate a lot of the thought and the process of going through and making this
Thanks.
new curriculum. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that the variation in how deep curricula go for kids is widely different throughout the sex ed curriculum world. And the committee was so careful to make sure that we were providing information that kids need, because we don't want them to learn from TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, the internet as a whole. But also balancing what our community culture and feel and values are in a way that is going to feel okay for most people. And to Susan's point, the Sex Ed Advisory Board takes very seriously the mission of Saline area schools that this is a student-centered decision-making body. It is not what I think or Cameron thinks or Megan thinks or Julie thinks, or, you know, all the other different people that are on this board, that it is about what kids need and what kids need to be safe and healthy, that we take ourselves out of it. And I do want to say this particular committee, this group, has been amazing at that process. It has been a real joy getting to have done this for many, many years, to see this particular group immediately band together and immediately work on something that can be a difficult conversation. So.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman-Peebler. I'm sensitive to the fact that you've been standing for an hour and almost 20 minutes and you haven't had a sip of water the whole time. But at this point, if anyone in the audience has any clarifying questions they want to ask now, they're welcome to do so. Or, and hear me out, over the next 2 weeks, parents who have questions or community members who have questions about the curriculum are invited to email the board, sasboard@salineschools.org. I will definitely make sure the appropriate people on the SEAB, the co-chairs, get those questions. I'll just leave it at that. At this point in time, I hope to place the question of approving this agenda on the as an action item on the September 24th agenda. So, oh, you do see a hand for a clarifying question? Please. No, we won't be able to hear you unless, I know you really didn't want to talk in the microphone. I could tell. And Ms. Gunderson, if your question, well, can wait. No, and Ms. Gunderson, if you had, your question was about this in your final comment, if you want, okay. Never mind. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Julie Kelly. I'm a teacher at Heritage in 5th grade. So my question is, are girls and boys going to be taught together? I didn't get what you said at the end of that, whether you took what we had to say about that into consideration and then decided we're still doing boys and girls together, or we're doing them separate. What did you say? I didn't catch it. I have a few more things that I'll wait till later.
Okay, that's a good question,
That's my
and
question.
that's the most pressing one, right?
So that question has not been answered at this time, and that, you know, based on what we've discussed and what I've discussed with others who are knowledgeable of state law, that's a decision that can and will be made at the building level with district leadership around whether or not we'll be teaching with mixed gender classrooms or same gender classrooms. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gunderson's question was just a reminder that, as well as emailing the board email address with questions, the curricular materials will still be available at Heritage. Feel free to email me directly or email the board email to come in and read those before September 24th. Email works best just so we can schedule something if there are questions that come up, and so I can point people to the slides and things like that. But they're
And this
available.
presentation and all the active links will be available to the community. Thank you. We have one other question, clarifying question from the audience.
Yes, please. My name is Marcy Goya. I am also a 5th grade teacher at Heritage. I am also our SEA board rep for the teachers at Heritage. This topic was brought up to me in the summer, and that's where I've become involved with this. Definitely a clarifying question that my teachers have been asking of me and asked me to seek clarification was, we are looking at this curriculum. There is a spectrum of, on the parts of it, agreeing, disagreeing, different parts to it. In the past, and some of the teachers at the building were there previously when the last curriculum came through, the steps that happened were that the curriculum was there, and if you notice our curriculum, our old curriculum now, there are crossed out, there are replaced words, there are sections that are whited out, and those were decisions that were made. But previously in the past, all of that had to be done before the board voted, and the board saw those corrections and changes and things that we felt were appropriate, and then they voted on that. And from what I understand, I will admit I was not there at that time, we couldn't make changes after that. We've been assured that we can still do that that's maybe not the process this time, but I think my teachers would feel better if I could go back and get some clarification on that. Because we have, and I will give Cameron lots of credit for this, is that this discussion was brought to me, I approached him, and he's been very open, and we've actually already started to talk about things. For example, in the slide that you saw in regards to masturbation, that is a topic of contention in some teachers don't feel comfortable with that. I reviewed the curriculum, and what you saw, I felt was, for personally myself, it's a definition of what it is, and it mentions that it's done in private. I was fine with that. However, what you did not see is if you actually look at when you go to the female section of that, in the female section, it's not the same exact description. In the female sections, it mentions actual body parts that are involved. Where some teachers are, we've looked at that, it's like, is there a point then where we're almost maybe teaching masturbation because we are actually talking about the parts that are involved? There's a difference in that curriculum there from the male portion to the female portion. The male portion you saw, no body parts are mentioned at all. It's considered private parts. When you look at the female portion, it does mention parts like labia and things like that. So those are the kind of things that we already, as reviewing this curriculum, have started to look at and say, hey, okay, if this is going forward, this is one thing that maybe we want to look at. Can we take that exact male description, those 2 sentences, and replicate that when we get to the female section of the curriculum? That's where we would like to do. And I think teachers have already started to talk about that, the ones that have reviewed the curriculum, but I want to assure my teachers that we will have that process because we're coming up on a vote in 2 weeks. And like you said, academia can move slowly. There's a lot going on for teachers between now and 2 weeks from now. Like, do we have to do this process of looking at this curriculum, talking about different parts? There was mention of sexual, that word being used a lot within the curriculum. We felt like a few times, yes, you need to use that word, but other times we could change it with reproductive health rather than sexual health, or adolescent health versus sexual. There's those types of things going on. So I think I would like some clarification to take back to my teachers of this exact process.
I can answer that
We've
question
got three
for you
peop-
really
We've
quickly.
got 3 people who'd like
Yeah.
to answer, and I'd like to Dr. Latch to take the first go at it.
And I'm looking at the law here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I just want to go back, draw on the last time that the elementary curriculum was revised, because that's what you were citing, Marcy, and I'll just say how it went. And I'm not saying that it has to be this way this time, but the way it went last time is some of the teachers, specifically in 4th grade, had some concerns with one of the lessons. And really what was happening is the curriculum was approved, but then we did say, after discussing with the teachers, they did not want to teach every element of that lesson. And so we were going with the curriculum is improved and you can't teach more than this. But if it was agreed that the teachers felt like we needed to limit the way it was presented so that it was more developmentally appropriate, we went ahead and did it that way.
Yeah,
And
so
regardless
that
of whether that plays out this way, I just want to say that's how it went the last time we did approve curriculum.
And that is the way it goes. So if you think of it like a basket, we're having a basket of curriculum. And then, like Dr. Lotch said, there might be things that we take out of the basket, but we can't put anything into the basket. And so going through this process, we have omitted, like pre-omitted some things and saying we don't want to approve those things. But we can always take away as long as they've already gone through this process. So I don't want you or your teachers to think that you are being exempted from a process of looking through this. It is, this part of things is very prescribed by the law. So we can, after the fact, make some decisions from there. But as we have presented it, the CAB believes that this is the best course of action. Is that the action that's going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. But that's future conversation. Does that answer your question?
Okay, I have a very different response. So looking at our policy and law, so before adopting any revisions to the material, right, so it talks about the public hearing, so it's proposed revisions.
So we have checked with the law firm on this, and we have gone through the Michigan Department of Education that the revisions are changes for addition, but not for subtraction.
Okay.
We've already done that work.
Can you Steve send that to the board, that information.
The legal information
Yeah.
that you, yeah, we have that. Well, yeah.
Okay, that's fine, because I'm,
They would send it to me and I would send it to the board.
okay, they have it, we haven't talked to you.
I sought that out.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was
Yeah,
our
we
law
wanted
firm.
to double check that before we removed the HIV video from 8th grade that was so wholly inappropriately inaccurate now that it was detrimental to students.
Yeah, I definitely want to check that before we take a vote on it, because if people are, I mean, it could be that we have the curriculum and a decision is made from whoever to take out the gender and sexual orientation and all of those definitions without the board even knowing, because they have approved that curriculum. And if it differs from classroom to classroom, like
That's why we keep the mission and the policies of Saline Area Schools at the center of all of these conversations, because it is the goal of Saline Area Schools to make sure that those things are happening. And that's very important to the CIAB as well as to Dr. Lotch, to make sure that we are doing what we say we're going to do.
Yeah, and CIAB strictly brings recommendations to the board.
So
that's the rule.
Right.
So-
Beyond that, I can't speak to what happens, but we are
Yes.
committed to what is in front of us for those things.
And I would also, when we talk about at the building level, it was mentioned about splitting gender, right? Like the genders. I think that needs to be something the board, I think CIAB had talked about it being together, the curriculum taking it together. So I think that's something, if we need to, as a board, make a decision on, I think we need to do that.
That is outside the purview of the CIAB. That is an operating guideline. That is not a curricular recommendation. And so while we recommend that it be mixed gender classroom, and I would say,
So
you know,
that is in your recommendations, though, to be
right,
clear.
but it
Yeah,
recommend, but it is not
Okay,
part of the
that's-
adoption.
yep, because,
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's
Thank
what
you. Did that, Marcy?
all right, thank you. So
I guess so. I'd ask for one more clarification.
Yeah, come to the mic.
we're almost done. We have one quick statement from
Okay.
Vice President Stebbin, and I just want to note, she will, she's got a third, you have a third question. That's just, will your statement interrupt the flow?
Marcy, I just wanted to really thank you for coming up to the podium, and we should definitely, I see a lot of heritage folks here. We should definitely be listening to the people who have to operationalize this. I just wanted to really thank you for your comments.
Great. So Kristen Hoffman-Peeler is going to get her and Cam, the deep background to Steve, and we'll pass it along to the board to help us in our final decision in 2 weeks or 4 weeks. You had another question a clarifying question to ask.
Yeah, you talked specifically about additions and subtractions, but I think what I've appreciated with my talks with Cameron is that we have looked at trying to find the common ground, where we've saw some disagreements about this curriculum or some differences or feelings about this. We've talked and sat and kind of already started that process of finding some common ground or what we think might be the best practices or some changes. So that doesn't necessarily mean a subtraction. It doesn't mean an addition. It means changes in verbiage, changes in that. And I just want to be assured, because teachers are weary about this. We have been told that we will have that discretion because we want to take time with this. We feel like this is a serious topic and we do want to have time with it. And it has been hard. A lot of the review process was over the summer. Again, I give Cameron credit, and I asked him, I said, I think the best bet was, can you bring this curriculum to our building? This will make it easier for teachers. I myself, when I first heard about this, felt like I can't reach out to my members or do anything until I myself have saw the curriculum. And to be honest, summer hours and getting the chance to come to the office here to do that was really hard, and I could not do that over most of the summer. Cameron, I said to him, I said, can we get it here? It'll make it easier. And he brought it to Heritage, and more teachers have now had the time to do at least that initial revision and look at it and have some feedback on it. And I think we have already maybe start that process if it goes forward. We just want to make sure that we can do that. And I'm getting mixed from teachers. You know, we've been told this, but in the past, it has always been that you look at the final draft, and that's what you are voting on and approving or not approving. And that's what I just want to go back to my teachers and say, even if you say yes to the curriculum, we can still have those conversations that, again, might not include additions, we're not adding on, but we have the opportunity for maybe some subtractions or maybe some substitutions.
Do you think a
Yes?
week, my question to you is, do you think a week and a half would be sufficient?
No, I'm sorry.
I appreciate that.
The number of meetings that we already have, a lot of times, whether it's within our contract hours or anything else, I don't feel like it is. There's a lot, the beginning of the year is a very tough time for us. We're in a process of assessing our students, getting to know our students and everything. That's the one concern. I guess as a person, I might recommend then, if we need to be more involved in that process, to present you with something that maybe we're thinking about or we've looked at, we feel comfortable with, I would recommend putting off the vote, not in 2 weeks.
I hope you don't mind. I'd actually would probably chime in to it from the teacher's lens, if you will. Like, just the beginning of the year is about creating relationships and community and like trying to get to know our classrooms and some of that kind of stuff too. So I would think that like giving teachers the time to do that will allow those robust things to happen when they're not going through all this transition of trying to figure out what's happening with their students, who's got needs like IEPs and all that stuff. So I back that entirely.
Thanks, Ben. I'd like to let Dr. Lotch handle that particular issue right now.
Well, I would like everybody to consider, though, that as Kristen mentioned, they've already sought guidance to say that if you are taking things off the plate, so to speak, and even if it's a compromise, it's still taking something off the plate, that is still within the purview of the teachers and the administrators on how it would be implemented. Just like right now, for any of our curriculum, math curriculum, ELA, we constantly have teachers discussing with administration about, well, we have to adjust this, or we're not going to teach that part of the lesson because it doesn't meet the students' needs. We are having those discussions all the time with our current curriculum, even though that's what's been approved by the board. So I would suggest that there should be some latitude on how the administration and the teaching staff implements the curriculum, even if it's approved in full, so to speak. Now, you can push it off. I'm not saying you have to vote on it next week or the next meeting, but I would want people to consider that our teaching staff and our administrative staff do need to have some level of flexibility on how they implement any of our curriculum.
I think to some extent, some of the things that have been brought up here, though, would impact my vote. So the idea of voting on what we have now and then they go back and change it, I might have voted different.
I think that's where we want the clarification. We understand that this curriculum, I think, falls under different purview, with laws and things like that versus just the analogy of our regular math curriculum or something like that. We just want to make sure that we understand that or whatever and let you know that, if presented to us at this point, like what we see, there are some parts that teachers are not comfortable with and would like to see some changes to, and things like that. So, and having gone through this process before, they really had the questions and want to make sure the legality of it, that what kind of, would we have the time? And knowing that the vote is only in 2 weeks, that what we were super concerned about. Like, what you see right now, if you agree on that, if we do want to make some changes to it, would we be able to?
So I want to real quick, and I know Lauren's had. I know Lauren's had her hand up. I just wanted to say real quick, I think there's a question of whether you could substitute, you use that word. I appreciate you bringing this up, I really do. I know that we have representation of staff and teachers on our committee. I do know that I believe Kara worked with Cameron and Kristen on actually the outline. And I thought that was wonderful that that was brought to the committee because it was, you know, seeing exactly how that would go. I do think we need teacher staff voice, and maybe that's a meeting with Kara, possibly, well, probably, you know, Cameron, Kristen, and also, hold on, our teachers and who are on CAB to maybe have a conversation.
And I also just want to say that the CAB over the years has done their due diligence in surveying staff time and again to ask for their feedback on things, and it has been overwhelmingly geared to change, that we need to change, and this doesn't work anymore. The kids aren't getting what they want. So the committee has done their very best to make sure that they're getting that feedback prior to making any sort of a recommendation, so that we are serving the needs of what the data is that we get back, you know. And so if the data is showing largely that stakeholders in all areas are saying this doesn't work, we need more change, then that is what we have to go on. So, and I get your need for wanting to like look at it and think about implementation, but I just wanted to bring that up too, that we have been doing that work as well.
Right. Well, one thing I can share with you, and I know Dr. Gold, you had something to add. One thing I can share is that the 2 weeks from now was completely arbitrary, and we're happy to give you as much time as you need, within reason, because we need to get the staff trained in by spring when this comes into effect. So we'd rather this be approved as a whole. It's multifaceted and multi-parts and challenging for some people. Absolutely, we get that. But so I'd like to give you as much time as possible by taking it off the table at this point and letting you go back to the drawing board to talk with your teachers. Does this sound? Not that, you know what I mean, to the room. Dr. Gold, did you have anything you wanted to add at this point? Thank you.
I do. I echo Trustee Eastep that we did seek educator input and the input of people who understood teaching, because that was a big issue for me, and I appreciate the feedback of the teachers who spoke up here. I think as a person who is going to be asked to vote on this, what I would ask is if you are making, I think not right now, but before we vote on this, we would need to know whether or not there's a consensus of the 5th grade teachers with specific concerns, because I don't want kids in Mrs. A's class to get a different education than kids in Mr. B's class, than kids in Mrs. C's class. I think that's unfair to all the kids. And so I think we're trying to be sensitive in bringing up concerns, and I really appreciate that. But my questions are not for right at this second, but my questions for when I have to make a decision upon this is, are you, I understand that you're the union rep, are you speaking for the majority of the 5th grade teachers who are going to be be asked to implement this? Because if the majority of the 5th grade teachers have concerns that are specific and actionable, and we can as a board have some clarity as to, I'm not talking about, you know, all the T's crossed, all the I's dotted, exactly what you're going to teach. I understand that it's an art and a science, right? But I would like some understanding as to what we're really speaking about, rather than kind of in euphemisms. If there's a majority of the teachers who have concerns about some part of the curriculum, and we can understand, okay, we're passing this as a board, but there was this, that seems very different to me than the question of like, well, when the administrative guidelines go through, we're going to do this teacher's going to tweak this teacher's going to tweak that. I feel embarrassed to say the word masturbation in my office. And I understand that is what could happen. I mean, if you ask 6 pediatricians how they talk to their patients, you're going to get some differences in the style. But what I don't want is differences in the spirit and content. And so that's what I'm having a hard time understanding, frankly, from the references to how it was done in the past as somebody who's not doing that. And I'm also having a hard time understanding whether you're speaking about the plurality of the 5th grade teachers having significant concerns or some people having some little tweaks. I can't tell. And so that's not for us to do tonight. I'm just saying I understand you're having this discussion with Mr. Cochran, but in order for us to vote, I think we have to know what we're voting on. Because it's now, I thought I was kind of clear on it, and this question of having margin notes and makes it feel unclear. And I both have empathy for the teachers having to do the hard work of teaching this curriculum with giggling 5th graders, and it's not easy for anyone to talk about sex, but I also really strongly agree with Trustee Estep that people's personal discomforts can't get in the way of the mandate of giving kids information. And I'm not saying, I know our teachers are the utmost professionals, so if it's just a style difference or things like that, that feels different to me than there's major concerns with the curriculum, and I can't tell based on the statements tonight. I would like to have better understanding of that before I have to vote.
So Dr. Gold had her hand up just before I said let's end the discussion. Dr. Lotch is got a suggestion for how to move forward, and I'd like to hear that, and then we'll close it and go back to the...
Okay, so what I am hearing tonight from all of the voices is that the Board of Education is not ready to vote on this at the next meeting. There's just too many things that need to be addressed. So my recommendation, if the Board of Ed agrees with this, would be that you do go back and work with the 5th grade teachers specifically on figuring out what this compromised or however you want to word it, however you're going to reset the curriculum, so that then there would be another time that you come back to the board and present what that actually will look like, so that to Trustee Gold's point, that all the 5th grade teachers would be in relative agreement that this is how it would be taught, and therefore you could present that back to the Board of Education again. And then at the following meeting, following that, then that would be when a vote would occur. Because I think right now I'm hearing there's just too many unknowns about how that would play out.
So it would be really, really helpful if the teachers could fill out the Google form, like every single one of them, so that we can take that information and compile it into a big document and find the common places where there's praise and concern, right?
Fill it out, which is why we're here speaking on behalf of our colleagues, not just ourselves, because they're nervous to have their name associated with it.
Yeah, okay, so what we can do is we can create a separate Google form for you with the same exact questions and take off the email thing so that you guys can feel free to do that.
Right.
Yeah, does that feel good? Okay.
I'm going to suggest
Thank you
that
for asking that.
the details that you have to work out, you will work out outside of this
Not
board
in
meeting.
front of you.
Thank you.
In the evening.
You're very kind to read my mind. And since this is not an action item, there's no vote to take. I just thank you all for your support, and thank you, Marcy. What is your last name? Goya?
Goyette.
Goyette. Oh, Goyette.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so.
Thank you very much. Let me just wrap my head around what's next. I'd like to welcome Treasurer Brad Gerby to the floor to discuss the Board Finance Committee updates. He has a few.
I do. All right. Finance Committee met today at 5 o'clock, and we had a number of items on our agenda. I'll try to go through them and give just a quick summary and what have you. So obviously the first thing that we looked at was our initial pupil accounting and unofficial count. count day is in October, so I don't want to get, too far ahead of things. There's still some transientness, but the positive thing is that enrollment is trending in a positive way for us in the regard of we anticipate, I think I could say with confidence, that we will realize realize a smaller decrease in enrollment than we had projected. So that's always good to be in that way. We'd much rather be projecting in the positive than the negative, and that's good. There's a couple of areas with enrollment that are very interesting to watch as we watch them over time. The first one is our Y5s in kindergarten. That's our Young Fives programs in our kindergarten. That enrollment is looking like it's going to trend positively in double figures, which is good. And so I love that we're capturing young hornets, and they'll be with us for many, many years. And then the other place we're seeing is we saw some small cohort changes, like little adds here and there, but we saw we're seeing what may end up being, maybe, because it's not count day yet, a pretty positive growth at the 9th grade level of students coming who are in different programs, K-8, who now choose to come back to the high school. So that's another thing that looks positive, okay? Then we talked about, then how did we, we had made some changes to say, but we're, the thing that we should realize, though, as a district is that, wow, that's awesome. We were anticipating over 100 student decrease. We're still going to realize some kind of decrease. And so we are still, as a finance team, talking about, we want to get to a point where our finances and our structures are equivalent. And so that then we talk about, with regards to fund balances and with regards to expenditures and revenues, I mean, we're equal, if not in the black, right? And so we want to make sure that we're having those conversations so that we're teaching our pupils with the best class ratios and class sizes and all those things, but at the same time doing those things in a way that also respects our structures, right? And so that's there, and we will continue that work. So we talked about, but there are also things where we added. For example, like Pleasant Ridge, we were pleased about the kindergarten enrollment, and we added an FTE there because we wanted to maintain that educational environment for young people. So we're proud of the work that we're doing there, and I think that reflects our conversations about pupil accounting and hiring. Okay, so that is that. We talked about the bond. We should, as a board, we can look into the board projects, and there's awesome stuff on the school website that Jackie's doing and what have you, and that's like seeing the updates and recs with the transportation center. It's all looking very exciting. We looked at the finance piece, and I guess here's the quick view of the financing piece, is that we have currently, out of the $180 million bond, we've spent about $29 million of it. We have about $35 million, which we've approved in encumbered projects, right? So these are things that we've approved and that are on the horizon. So we've spent about $64 million of the $180 million, but that's not necessarily right now, shovels in the ground. That's stuff that extends from now till spring. And then what we'll do is we're going to then keep bringing things, probably more spring, summer, because that's more construction season, and we'll continue as we move along. Like the next thing we probably move to is things like the athletic updates, Crabtree and some of those kinds of things. So I don't want to necessarily say what we'll do, because sometimes those projects, because of money, because of availability, we can shift and move, but that's kind of where we're at on that. We are going to do a presentation as part of the second meeting in October. We plan to do that with some of those more specific bond things. So Superintendent Lotch said that we would bring that to the board, just so the board can get a little more clarity with that maybe the finance team got to see today. Okay. Initial feedback on our audit is looking, they call it clean. Clean is good. But again, I would anticipate that process finishing up end of October and into early November. And then two more things. We had as far as updates from the state go, we are still awaiting clarity with regards to the 3% and how that'll all kind of pass through and all of that. So the legislature is not reconvened, and they will probably have a little bit of a limited session between now and November 5th. But at the same time, like, we're still waiting for some clarity on that and the MIPSERS adjustment and all that. And then the last thing we talked about, we talked about our Informacast system and how we've been really awesome and really fortunate to be able to put that into place and Dr. McVeigh talked about that earlier. We talked about the button alert system and some of the funding that would be required for that kind of thing. And we had I had sent that off, Dr. Lotch, I should say, I sent it to him, and Dr. Lotch sent that off to Jay Grossman, head of technology. And guess what I could tell you is that in order to do something to that nature, and it doesn't have to be specifically that, but we would have to keep that in mind as we continue with ours because of Bluetooth necessities with regards to relays and feet and how that ties into our Wi-Fi. Long story short, the thing that encouraged me about it was that he said, yes, we're on top of it, and we're talking about it. And Dr. Lotz, we added that to our capital projects agenda. And so keeping those safety things in mind, I guess, is what I want to say overall. I don't want to get too ingrained in a specific thing, but we're talking about those things, and I'm really thankful that we're doing that. So that was our 6 items that we talked about for an hour today.
Thank you, Treasurer Gerby. Administration/board updates. Here's the order. I'm going to ask Dr. Lotch for a quick comment, followed by Kate and Tommy, if that's all right. And then we can work our way around, starting with Dr. Gold or starting with Tim Austin. I don't care.
Okay, you want to go first?
Okay.
Mine are quick. Thank you, everyone, for getting off to a great start to the school year. When I was touring the buildings at the beginning of the school year, often it's, things are not always ready. This year I felt like everything was ready. Kids were doing great. So were the teaching staff and our support staff. So just thought it was a really good first couple weeks. And then just wanted to thank Rex again. Trustee Gerby gave a good update on the bond. I mean, Rex has really been working very hard over the summer and has really just kept these projects on track. 95% of the summer work is completed, maybe even a little more at this point. But the stewardship with Miranda and finance and Rex with the the vision and the direction of this bond, it's really going very, very well. And I'm really pleased and supportive of the process.
We don't have too much to add, but we just want to say thank you to the teachers and staff who made the first couple of weeks smooth into transitioning from summer, and all the sports are back up, and it's exciting for the year coming up.
Mine will be quick too. Kind of the same thing, thanks to the staff and all that they've done to make the new year start out right, and the enthusiasm we saw with the new staff. Also want to say, maybe I'll knock on wood here real quick. With transportation, last year was a whole lot different. We were talking about, bus routes being taken away and this and that, and Rex was spending a lot of time in the bus and not doing the other important things. And this year, we, as of right now, we've kind of got a handle on that, and it's amazing what some work on the 4 applications. That's awesome, and I think that has a lot to do with the just the ESP contract and some of the changes we made to that. So that's great.
All right, I'm going to be brief also. I want to echo the gratitude to everyone at Saline Area Schools who has made the start of a new school year positive, and for everyone who welcomed all of the students back to buildings and classrooms and buses and all of the places. So thank you. I sometimes feel like thank you isn't enough because the job of starting a new school year I think it was Cam Cochran asked me earlier today, like, how's the start of your school year going? And I said, I don't know because I haven't stopped to think about it, but I think okay. It's just really, really busy. And so I appreciate the the weariness and the cognitive load that our entire staff has right now. And hopefully we will all settle in soon and feel a new normal. Routines bring that to us, so that's all good. I wanted to also mention in our meeting so that everyone has an opportunity to hear it, that we are having an additional policy meeting to the typical cadence of our meetings. We will be having a policy meeting on September 16th at 5:30. We will still have the policy meeting that is scheduled for Tuesday, September 24th at 5. The reason for the additional meeting is that we had some proposed modifications to the policy, which is policy 9141, which is our DEIAC policy. And because of those recommendations and modifications, it has caused us to look at some parts of that policy in particular. And so there is one piece that we feel we have a sense of urgency around, and that is the piece that specifically addresses seating new DEIAC members. And we know that we have a number of vacancies, and in order for that committee to run smoothly and to be able to do the work that they do, we understand that there's a sense of urgency. We also understand that the board has requested 2 opportunities for discussion around any sort of revision that is made. And so we are pulling that piece forward so that we can move that, hopefully, if, well, not hopefully, I'll just say if the policy committee decides to move that forward, it could move forward sooner rather than later so that we can move forward with seating those members. And so I requested that the policy meeting meet, or the policy committee meet for an additional time so that we can move forward on that more quickly. So that is the reason for it. And then we will continue with our discussion as planned at our next meeting. So if you would like to join us, September 16th at 5:30, and then again, September 24th at 5 p.m. Thanks.
Quick clarifying question. Are you aiming for a 1-hour meeting or a 10-minute
We are actually
meeting?
aiming for a 30-minute meeting. However, we know that with public comment that, sometimes that isn't, within our control, but that is what we're aiming for.
Got it.
Are these clarifying questions or actual changes? Because we're holding up
To what?
a board committee.
They're legal recommendations that we'll be discussing.
Thank you. I do have a quick note that on Thursday in 2 nights at 6:30, the district is going to host a candidates forum here in this very room. It'll be streamed and recorded. And I would like to also note that our very own Tommy Elman and Kate Sonaday are going to be the MCs or hosts, or I think that's what they've got planned at this point. You will not be firing off the questions though, but you're going to be the, not even the moderators. You're just going to be our hosts for the evening, and the board. If there are any incumbents on the board, they'll be sitting at the table, and I'll be sitting in the audience, and you'll be just helping us get settled in. All right, thank you. I'm sure Jackie Martin will give you all the details, because I don't know any of them. Thank you. That's really all I have to say. I'll pass it over to Jennifer Stebbin, unless you're ready, Susan. Still not? Okay.
Okay, I'll go. I was going to mention that, so I won't now. A couple other dates, though, coming up for other activities. Let's see. These aren't necessarily in order, sorry. Our homecoming parade is October 4th. The lineup starts at 4:30, and then the parade starts at 5 o'clock. Always a good time to see what the kids are doing. I don't know if the 2 of you are in it, or all right, or involved in it. Our fall luncheon for the Foundation for Saline Area Schools and fundraiser is on October 30th here at the Liberty School Cafeteria from 12 to 1. So if anyone would like to attend, the trustees are trying to get tables together, and I'm sure they would love you to be there. I'm skipping that one. November 3rd is our deadline for grants for the Foundation for Saline Area Schools. Lots of updates with them because our meeting was today. So any teachers that are listening, if they need money for innovative projects in their classrooms or buildings on November 3rd. Our Run Tough for Chad Tough is on September 29th. It did change to Sunday this year. It's at 2, I think remarks are, I have a card. 2:15 are opening remarks by the cars, and then the race starts at 2:30, and the foundation will have a table because they're trying to get volunteers of all different ages and buildings. So you can stop by their table. They have generated $73,500 in corporate sponsorships for this academic year. That's 39 companies, so well done to our volunteers there. And I think those are all of my foundation-y updates. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is I was at the away game at Dexter for football this past Friday, and another parent said something to me about our student section and said how impressed they were with the kids having fun, doing some games and getting into the Western theme, but really acting responsibly and just really enjoying the game and each other. And I loved hearing that. And I know how hard our high school staff works because I see them and Dr. Lodge down on the track or whatever outside of the field. So thank you to the students for always being good ambassadors, especially at our away games.
Mr. Kirby.
All right. So yeah, I'll be happy to participate Thursday, 6:30. I'm looking forward to what kinds of questions you guys have with putting us on the hot seat and all of that, and so looking forward to that. I also want to extend my thanks for the new staff and the people that we met tonight. It seemed like quite an excellent group of people with diverse experiences and all those kinds of things. So that was really awesome to see. I'm excited that we got to meet them tonight. I want to thank our staff and our coaches. The beginning of the school year is kind of like drinking from a fire hose, right? There's a lot for the staff to analyze and to figure out about our classes. You're figuring out simple things like names, but you're also figuring out what those names mean, things about those kids, right, and about those families. And so just trying to figure out all those things. And I know that I've witnessed it with my own children. I witnessed this with other children, that our staff is extraordinary, and they really prioritize those things, and they really want to be good. They want to be better than good. They want to be great and awesome for kids. So I'm really thankful for that and what have you. And then the last thing I have that's on my mind, you heard me earlier talking about, the system that we talked about with regards to InformaCast and all of that. And I'd be remiss if I've had it with having to talk about gun violence in schools. And the only acceptable thing to me is 0, right? That is the only acceptable thing in a school. And I know that we keep talking about, and we've really done a lot of good things in our school district, but I want to make sure I say those things out loud with reviewing our safety plan and having Alice training and, the InformaCast system and what have you. But I sure hope that our politicians and our people who are out there, I don't know if they're listening to me right now, but I want us to talk about these things. They're difficult conversations, but at the same time, every kid, no matter whether we're red, we're blue, however you vote, whatever you do, we all want to send our kids to school, and we all want them to come home safe. We want the staff members who love and care about them to come home safe. 0 is the acceptable number for me on that. And so I don't know. I'm just racking my brain about it. I want to keep thinking about sensible solutions and all of that kind of thing. And I'm sad. My heart goes out to those people in Georgia, but we got to keep trying, and we got to talk to our people and say, what can we do? And that's that. So thank you for your time tonight.
I had the opportunity to attend the middle school open house, and of course I'm thankful to the staff, but I wanted to specifically shout out the kids who were doing the greetings and handing out the maps in case any of their parents are listening, because I know they're not watching a school board meeting, but just the nicest, sweetest kids with a map, and I can't read a map, but they still kept trying to help me. It's a good thing I don't have to go back to middle school. They just really spoke well of the district. I know there's probably a name for that team that shows parents around, but they just were so enthusiastic about their job. They made me smile, and they were very helpful. So a shout out to the middle school welcome team at Open House. If anyone's listening, tell them Dr. Gold says good job. And then I wanted to thank Mr. Cochran and Kristen Hoffman-Piefler and the entire CEAB committee who have worked so diligently on this for so long. And I think, you know, we're all learning a lot in the process, and it's a hard process, but thank you to them because they have put endless hours into this. And then lastly, I just wanted to highlight that September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and I know there are Hornets in the district who are affected in a multitude of ways as survivors or currently fighting or family members with childhood cancer, and it's a topic. Of course, we have Chad Tuff, and then the wider childhood cancer community it's a topic near and dear to my heart. And even once you survive, the kids cope with the ramifications, and families and siblings cope with ramifications for a long time. So just an extra shout out to those kids and the people who love them and the teachers who teach them for September.
Thank you, Lauren. By the way, I've been going to that school with children in the school and others for the last 17 years. I'm still getting lost. So it's absolute. It is. I don't know who the architect was, but I want that name. Ms. Eastep, and then we're going to go on.
Yes. Yep, I will be at the forum on Thursday as well. I was super excited to find out that it is totally student led, and we're getting questions from the students. In 2018, it was, I believe, the student debate team who did it. And so, you know, just gives me energy, and, you know, that's why we're here. And so I'm looking forward to that. Then let me see. So the DEIAC has a meeting coming up September 25th. Hopefully we will have members prior to that. You know, our superintendent appointed Ryan Kerr, who's one of the chairs, and hopefully he can move forward to do his job and support us in appointing new members who have applied. And most of our members left, so hopefully we can do that very soon prior to the meeting.
Clarifying question, what time is that meeting? The DEIAC? You said the 25th. I'm just curious as to when you usually meet.
Well, let me check. Yeah, 6:30.
6:30. They usually go for an hour, half an hour? An hour. All right, that's cool. Thank you. I'd like to entertain, without reading this part, I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize a consent agenda as printed.
So moved, Stebbin.
JS.
Support, Miller.
JM. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Whew. We have a consent agenda passed. Let me just skip ahead. Items on the next agenda, Dr. Latch?
Yep, we're moving up enrollment update. So I'll provide an enrollment update with Miranda's help and assistance with numbers for the next meeting. And we're also having Minik Uzalak. She's the director of WEOC, which is Washtenaw Educational Options. They support Y-High, Early College Alliance, WAVE, and so forth. And she's coming to just talk about the programs to make sure the Board of Education knows what they do and that some of our students do attend those programs. And then we'll go into closed session for the quarterly update for superintendent evaluation.
That's right. There may be another item as well. So thank you. We have public comment, and a member of the public may address the board. And I believe the member of the public is sitting right now here. heading to the podium, fully aware of the timing rules, because this is not your first rodeo.
I do have a question, and I kind of want feedback from it. So because everybody has left, it's related to the SEAB teacher that's here. I know she represented grade 5. My curiosity to you, if you can answer, is if they're going to, Cameron and Kristen Peeler are going to send the survey to the teachers without the names on it. Is that going to go to grade 6, 7, and 8 as well, as they didn't? I just want to make sure that all the teachers have the same opportunity to give the same kind of feedback. And I don't know if I should send them a question email or if that's something that comes from y'all.
It's best that you send the email.
To
Well,
you or to them?
Give it to anyone who's on the board, and we'll make sure it gets to them unless you have their email addresses directly.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I just didn't know if you were doing it anyway, and why send them to, but
It's a
I
good
got
question,
it.
send it to them.
Okay, all right.
You haven't started your public comment
Oh,
yet?
no,
thank you.
thanks. It's like 90 seconds. One, I wanted to publicly say thank you to all the teachers who did back to school night, for lack of a better term, at the high school. As a mom of more than one student, it is a challenge to get around the building more than once to hit all 12 people. I didn't make it. I did, however, at my request, receive 7 of the 12 syllabi, for the classes. I'm looking forward to receiving the other ones. I got the 7 same day, and I'm also looking forward to seeing the syllabi for Hornet Time, which Karen and I are going to have a chit-chat about later. I think it is really important, especially in the last year or two, that it just seems like transparency is such an issue and that's such a volatile time. I think it's important to know what's coming at you and or what you want clarification on when it comes to your kids, whether it's sex ed or after-school activity or how we're using academic time. So I'm appreciative to the teachers who did send it already, and I look forward to getting the other ones as well, because their time is valuable. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gunderson. Appreciate that. The next board meeting will be held on September 24th at 6:30 in this room. And I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the regular Board of Education meeting at 9:02.
So moved, E-Step.
Thank you, S.E.
Tim said support.
Tim, did you just move to support? Let me carefully write your name down. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
7-0. Thank you very much, everyone. 9:02, I said? Thank you. Good night, everyone. Oh, there we go.